Okay, raise your hand if you just tried to record a podcast with no microphone plugged in. That was me. Okay, now that I got that all figured out and spent all that time dilly-dallying trying to figure out why my microphone wasn't plugged in, I got to talk fast, and you got to listen fast because I'm in the red with all my batteries. My headphones are at medium. My laptop is at about 15% battery, and I feel like if I don't get this off my chest, I'm going to forget everything I have to say, and so I cannot run upstairs and get any chargers right now. If you know me and you're listening to this, you're like, yep, that's pretty on brand for Amanda. We have Life 360 at our house, where you can track people's cell phones and see when they're driving, and it just helps us keep tabs on the moving parts of our family members. Well, I set it up, and for some reason it gives my husband double notifications, and so he gets notifications every time I leave the house, every time I get home, every time I'm driving, and now it pops up and tells him in a beautiful large alerting notification when I need to charge the battery of my phone. And so multiple times a day he'll text me and be like, charge your phone. And here's the best part, you guys, is I work from home. There is no excuse for me not to be plugging in my stuff. Oh, the struggle, I tell you. So this week's episode, I honestly wasn't really sure what we were going to talk about. The last two, if you haven't listened to the Prison Break Part 1 and 2 episodes, go back and listen to those. Those are really easy for me to talk about just because they were fairly recent. They were very life-changing, freeing moments. And there's still a lot of stuff that I'm not free from and still struggling with. And I think that's harder for me to talk about just because I haven't fully processed it yet. I don't have the well-developed vocabulary to tell you about it yet. So I was kind of stressing okay, God, what am I going to talk about? What's next? What's new? What should I say? And one of my good girlfriends called me and she was like, Amanda, you have journals upon journals upon journals. Why do you not just look back in the pages of your journal? And I do, but I usually don't go back a long time because I don't know, that seems like a lot of work to just dig them out and flip back through the pages. So usually the content for my podcast is stuff that's happened to me fairly recently. But last night I had all my journals out. So I have 14 journals from the last 5 years of my life. And then I did some math, crunched the numbers. I have roughly 1,400 pages of journals, of thoughts and prayers and fears and drama and conversations with God and struggles and all life's nitty gritty in 1,400 pages, the last 5 years of my relationship with God. And I'm like, I wonder what I was doing, thinking about / praying about / probably worrying about a year ago today. So October 25th, 2022. So I whipped out that journal and sure enough, there I was all up in my angsty little feelings, struggling with making a decision. There's a lot of things that I've learned about decision making in the last year that I wish could say have set me free, but let's just say I still got some prison bars around me in that area, but I am learning, I am progressing, and I want to share with you what was happening last year, some things that I've learned on the other side of some big decisions that maybe can help you as well. So let's dive in, talk about decisions. I have no idea what the title of this podcast is going to be. Something creative will hopefully spark in my brain later on. So stay tuned on the title. But we're talking about decisions. On this day last year, I had written about really struggling with the decision to leave our church. My husband and I started a small church in town 5 years ago. We had never really been to church together before. We had never taken our kids to church together. And while God was actively in the process of changing my heart and saving me, my then ex-husband called me and was like, hey, I'm taking our kids to church. You should come with. That began our journey towards healing in our marriage and getting remarried. And just now we are God-fearing, Jesus-loving, church-going folks. So we planted roots in a church 5 years ago, and last fall had just started feeling like something wasn't quite right anymore. And nothing was wrong in the church. It was a great church. Such a great church. Great experience. We loved the people there. Everybody was amazing. It was a great opportunity to dabble in ministry. We were deep in leadership roles. My husband and I had ran the youth program for a couple years. I had been the worship leader for a few years. And so we were just had deep, deep roots in that church. And then all of a sudden it started to feel a little bit unsettling because I could feel those roots sort of like pulling up. I don't know, we didn't get a prophetic word or a vision or anything like that, but you could just tell it was a season of change for us. A transition was coming and we had no idea what we were going to do. I was a hardcore people pleaser, very scared of saying no to anything, of letting people down. So for me to step down from leadership was really, really scary. So here we are, wrestling with this decision to leave a really, really good place for no real logical reason. In my journal, that whole month of October, you can see it going back and forth, kind of arguing with myself and asking God for direction. Fast forward to this past summer, we actually felt completely released at that time to make a move and make a change. We switched churches, and having made that decision and come out the other side of it and looked back on it, I feel like it's much easier now to kind of tell you and identify the pain points in the process for me and just decision making in general, so that maybe you see some of yourself in this too. Okay, more so than just last October and this decision to leave church, I'm somebody who, for a very, very long time, and for very, very various reasons, have struggled with making decisions, being at peace with the decisions I make, being confident in moving forward in those choices. And it's just caused me so much mental exhaustion over the years, because it's like I beat myself up mentally on all sides of the decision. So before the decision needs to be made, I work myself up in worry and anxiety about, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Then time for the decision comes and I'm running to God going, I don't know what to do. And sometimes it's not super clear how he guides. So then I get stressed out. And afterwards, after the decision is made, instead of kind of like kicking back in my lawn chair, eating a bonbon, drinking lemonade, and being like, whew, that was tough, glad we got through it. No, I beat myself up on the back end of it too, because I'm scared I made the wrong decision. And I don't want to have any regrets, and I don't want to find out that I screwed it up and took the wrong path, missed a blessing, screwed up my destiny, all of those things. So then I spend time afterwards stressing about the decision that was already made, and then watching and waiting for things to go wrong. And I didn't really understand how detrimental and absolutely poisonous that was to me emotionally and mentally and even spiritually. And so for a long time, I just thought, okay, this is the way I am. Decisions are hard for me. They suck. I'm not good at them. And I'm just going to have to grin and bear it and muscle through it, until I stumbled upon James chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. And I realized that my issues with decision making was like a real issue, that it didn't have to be like that, and something was very, very wrong. So let me read this to you. James 1, 5 through 6. I'm going to read it in a couple different versions because the NIRV is my favorite version for basic understanding, and then the amplified version kind of fleshes it out really nice. It says this: if any of you needs wisdom, you should ask God for it. He'll give it to you. God gives freely to everyone and doesn't find fault. But when you ask, you must believe. You must not doubt. That's because a person who doubts is like a wave of the sea. The wind blows and tosses them around. So here I am in the middle of these decisions, knowing that A, I can go to God for help. B, that I should go to God for help and wisdom. You would think that A plus B would equal C. Amanda gets answers from God and lives at peace and moves on with her life. Wrong. Because anything that I received from God, I doubted. I did not believe the directions I was receiving from him. I have a hard time believing and trusting that he's actually guiding me, that I'm hearing him correctly. And so I'm sitting here doubting. And that is actually called being double-minded. So this double-mindedness is this nature inside of you where you have this faith and you're going to God for it, but there's also this huge amount of doubt that when he speaks to you and guides you, you're not receiving it. And so there's a war inside of you that's causing you to be blown about. Like you're in this tiny little rowboat in the middle of a tsunami in the ocean, and you're splashing around near death, just clinging for dear life. Okay, let me read it in the Amplified Version. If any of you lacks wisdom to guide him through a decision or a circumstance, he is to ask of our benevolent God, who gives to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given to him. Okay, stop right there for a second. So if we're in a circumstance or decision that we are not sure about, actually every decision and circumstance, we need to ask God about it. And he's not going to get ticked off for you asking. He's not like, oh, here she is again asking me for something else. No, he's gracious. He's ready to just hand it out like candy at a parade, this wisdom that he's got. So it says he must ask for wisdom in faith without doubting God's willingness to help. For the one who doubts is like a billowing surge of the sea that is blown about and tossed by the wave. So it's doing you no good, and actually might be hurting you even more, to approach God to ask for wisdom and then absolutely doubt what he's giving you. I think we're all double-minded. We are, because we just have this nature inside of us that it's very, very hard for us to trust, especially something or someone that we can't see. Why do we doubt so hard? When it says right there, and if you're living your life by scripture, it says he's waiting to drop that wisdom on you. He's pumped to do it. He's pleased to hear from you. He's got a whole lot of wisdom to hand out. Yet we're over here going, I'm not sure. Is that what you really said? Like, I don't know if you'll really help me with this. Okay, what triggers our double-mindedness? Besides the fact that we're busted up broken people. I get that. But what about these decisions and life's choices just messes with us so bad? And I think there's a couple huge reasons. And if we can really attack those reasons, pinpoint them and battle against them, I think we're all going to be way better in our decision-making processes. Okay, the first one is we don't trust his wisdom because it doesn't seem logical to us. So we're going to head to Proverbs. And I love Proverbs. It's called the Book of Wisdom. It's one of the Book of Wisdoms. I think Job is a Book of Wisdom, Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon. These are called the Books of Wisdom. But Proverbs is my absolute favorite. And here's why. It's like taking biblical truth and being able to directly apply it and plop it into your life circumstances, your situations. I mean, there's everything in there. Finances, parenting, marriage, friendship, neighbors, food, drinking, gardening. I don't know if gardening's in there. I feel like it is though. Maybe. And most of the Proverbs were written by King Solomon, who is widely known as being the wisest man to ever live, just filled with the great wisdom of the Lord. And one of the best parts of Proverbs is the fact that this is a compilation of knowledge from all the generation of God's people. And King Solomon is like compiling all of these wise sayings and writing these things that they've learned all the way back from the Old Testament. I mean, they've walked through some serious stuff where they kept turning away from God and worshiping other idols. And then they would basically get crushed and oppressed. And God would say, turn back to me. There's blessing. And then they would do it. And then they would learn something. And so there's just this hundreds and hundreds of years cycle of decision making and consequences and blessings that these people have learned from that are compiled into this book. So it's not somebody just making it up on the fly. This is based on generations of experience. And he's writing it to his son. And I don't know if you're a parent, and even if you're not, if you're an adult who gives shady advice to a kid, that's weird. Don't do that. But as a parent, this world is too chaotic, too crazy. Life is way too short to give your children crappy advice. I know I don't do it. I'm sure you don't do it either. But he's compiling these sayings to give to his son. So you know that he's pulling the best, choicest, wisest pieces that he has learned, that the generations have learned. And he's giving this to his kid like, hey, you want a guidebook? You want some wisdom for life? I'm going to lay it all out for you right here. So we're going to head into Proverbs and look at some of the wisdom in Proverbs here. The first thing we'll talk about is Proverbs 3:6. And I love this. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Another version says, he will make your path straight. So boom, easy, right? Trust God, do what he tells you to do, and he's going to show you which path to take. Here's the problem though, and here's where we get hung up. The path that he's going to tell you to take isn't always straight. In our brains, if you're trying to get from point A to point Z, the quickest way, and I think this is in geometry too, I'm not a mathematician, but the shortest distance between two places is a straight line. But God's not concerned about the shortest distance. And that idea kind of wrecked me. And so here's what I wrote in my journal. Him making a straight path doesn't mean the path will look straight. God knows where you need to get to, and he'll cut the right path for you to get there. Logically, in our own understanding, the next right step is Z. It's shortest. It makes the most sense. But he might lead you to N, M, Q, P, X, T, Y, W, B, D, F before you get to Z. This feels circular. It feels curvy, and it feels wrong to us. But when we fight something because the direction we're led doesn't make sense, we're the ones that are wrong. Where does our faith grow if every instruction he gives us makes perfect sense? Our faith is really built when we're led in the sideways steps that don't appear to head directly to our destination. And so it's not about getting from point A to point Z for God. This is about the journey of building your faith, of learning to trust him. And I'm not saying he leads you purposely astray, because he never will. But he knows exactly which path you need to take to become more like him, to grow and become the person he wants you to be, to develop the heart and the character that you need to have to glorify him. For you, I mean, this is true for me, but for you too, that's not going to be a straight line because straight lines are way too simple. They're way too easy. There's no character building in a straight line. So we get all skittish when we see circles happening or curves happening in our path. We don't really get it. But here's what's really cool. In Psalm 23, it says this: he opens before me the right path and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness. And if you look in the original language, that actually means circular paths of righteousness. And it refers to the way that the shepherds would lead the sheep around the hills in the Middle East. So they would lead them from tuft of grass to tuft of grass behind rocks, but they wouldn't drive the sheep straight up the hill to find the grass, because the sheep gets a lot of comfort from familiar terrain. And so for them, they will eat better, they will graze better, they will be more at peace, they will get along with the herd and the shepherd better if they are calm. And so to keep them calm, the shepherd actually leads them around the hill. And each time he makes it around the hill, there's no grass left because the sheep have eaten it already. So he has to take them a little higher each time, but they can still see the path where they just were. So they're not freaked out, they're at peace, they're willingly following the shepherd as he leads them. And so these paths of righteousness that he's leading us in, guess what? They're circular. Because we're going to get scared. If he just takes you by the hand and pulls you like over the top of a roller coaster and down and just over a cliff, you're going to lose your mind. Granted, he's going to make some big moves in your life if you let him. But as a general pattern, in order for us to learn to follow well and to obey well, there's just these small paths where we don't get it because it looks like we're going in circles, or it looks like we're not going the smartest path over the mountaintop, but he's doing it for our benefit. So we have to trust the circle. We have to trust the curvy, and we have to let go of our logic and quit trying to figure it out all on our own and just follow the path. It all comes down to trust. This idea of trusting what he's giving you, trusting where he's telling you, and not doubting it. All right, second reason a lot of us get double-minded, weird, and edgy about decisions is because we want to know the whole map. We want to see the whole treasure map. We want to see X marks the spot and the little dots where we need to step. We want to know the end goal before we move. And guess what? God does not work that way. Let me prove it to you. Psalm 119, 105. 105? That's a lot of verses. I had to scroll down a lot to find it. Okay, Psalm 119, 105 says this. And it says it basically the same in every version. So let's go for it. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. And in my head, I'm picturing this big camp lantern, you know, the ones that are clear and have this big like LED light in the inside, and you can see 100 feet in all directions. The darkest of the night is just lit up by this huge spotlight. I'm just gonna tell you right now, my image of it in my head, and probably yours too, is wrong. So I was doing a little research and learning about lamps in Bible times, because a good rule of thumb for scripture is it can't mean for us now in 2023 what it did not mean for the people in those times. So when they're talking about a lamp, they're talking about a lamp from Bible times, like Jebediah, Zebediah, and Mary, Mark, Luke, John. The lamps that they carried are the ones that they're referring to here, not like our Stanley Camp lanterns from Dick's Sporting Good. A lamp back then was often a clay pot or a clay jar with wax or a piece of cloth that was dipped in oil and lit on fire. Now think about like your typical clay garden pot. That doesn't throw light very far. Like imagine how that would go. It would literally just shine down or up or sideways depending on how you held it. The opening of the jar is the only thing that's letting out light. Now, want to know something wild though? Is that they would take these clay jars out into the wilderness of the desert. And keep in mind, this is a dangerous place. We got like snakes and what else? You guys, what lives in the desert? I don't even know. I need to open a science book. There's all sorts of deserty predators out there. There's these things called wadis, which are flooded valleys and caves where they could just fall in and drown and die. There was cliffs and mountainsides and just the chance of getting lost because we're not on Highway 35, clearly marked with an exit. So these people are walking in the dark in fairly dangerous terrain with a small light. And so sometimes they would take a rope and tie one end of the rope around their waist or like around their arm and the other end around this clay jar. And they would swing the rope like kind of like yeehaw lasso situation, and they would throw the clay lamp in front of them. Now, your rope can't be that long, obviously, because you're hauling it around in the desert in the dark. So we're probably talking 5 feet, 6 feet. Maybe 10 at the most. Maybe 10 if you've got a good arm. So they're chucking this clay lamp about 10 feet max in front of them. And you can imagine that as it's spinning and hurling through the air and lands, they get just little glimpses of the landscape around them, of the path, of any predators, things like that. That's not giving you a lot of idea where you're going and what's coming up. The other thing they would do is tie these clay lamps to their leg so that it shimmered, whatever. So it pointed down at their foot and they could see exactly where their foot was stepping. So when the Bible says, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path, do you think that that word, his wisdom, his revelation is going to show you the whole picture? No. Ain't happening. That's not how he works. Because again, if we know the whole picture, we're going to screw it up, you guys. We're going to get proud, or we're going to try to get famous, or we're going to get scared, or we're going to quit because we're tired and bored of it. He doesn't show us all of that so that we finish running our race and that we stay protected and at peace. Last October, when I was wrestling with this decision for our family about church, this is what I journaled. And it's the same verse. Your word is a lamp to my feet, but it only lights a little bit. And then he said to me, you don't need to know the whole plan to take the step. And so I think sometimes that's where our double-mindedness comes in, is because we're waiting, we're hesitating on moving forward, we're scared to go in any direction because we don't know the exact direction. We don't know the complete picture. Therefore, we're unwilling, unsure of, and scared to take the first step towards it. And I don't know about you guys. I think some decisions are way easier to make. Like, there's very obviously a right and a wrong in some decisions, and it's very, very black and white. But where I get really hung up, where I get really restless, angsty, and double-minded are when decisions pop up that are between two good things. So, like, I have a choice to make. Neither of them seems any gooder than the other one. They both are positive for me, my family. I can glorify God in those spaces. I can grow closer to Him in those spaces or in those choices. And so I'm left with two equally balanced decisions. And I'm like, this is bad. Because in my head, the perfectionist part of me says there has to be a right and a wrong. There has to be one that is just like a little bit better in God's eyes, and He's just waiting for me to figure it out so He can unlock the next part of my destiny. And if I choose wrong, I'm going to miss it. Let's quit thinking like that. So when we're faced with two good things and we've prayed about it, we've asked God for wisdom, we're trusting the fact that this might be a circular path and it doesn't always make sense. We're accepting the fact that we aren't going to see the whole picture all the time. I'm not going to know every step to every decision. So we go through all those steps and we're like, both of these still seem pretty bomb. I get paralyzed. I get absolutely paralyzed. And here's where 2 Timothy 1:7 can help you. It's helped me a lot, actually. And do I remember to like reference it or say it or pray it every time I feel this way? Absolutely not. I just get real deep in that double-mindedness and sort of just like lose track of myself. But here's something that can really help all of us. Okay, I'm going to read it in the New Living Translation first. This is a very, very well-known verse. You probably heard of it. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Listen to it in the Amplified Version because it pulls it out really, really nice. It says, for God did not give us a spirit of timidity or cowardice or fear, but He has given us a spirit of power and love and sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in a calm, well-balanced mind and self-control. So right there, if we trust, there's that word again. Oh, that's such a hard word. If we trust that the Spirit of God is inside of us and that He has given us a mind that is calm, well-balanced, able to see through the muddiness and confusion of things and make a good choice, then we can move in confidence and authority that whatever we choose between those two good things is gonna be okay with Him because He put that power inside of us. Listen to what I wrote in my journal. God is not necessarily concerned about the actual choice you make. He's more concerned with where your heart is and who you're becoming in that choice. It's not about the exact location, time, activity, or behavior. It's about if you're becoming a bearer of spiritual fruit. Are you loving others well? Are you glorifying Him? So He's not looking to see, okay, did she choose choice A or choice B? He's allowing you sometimes to make these choices, put your faith in Him, put your faith in the sound mind that He's given you, and choose something that is going to allow you to bear fruit, glorify Him, and just grow closer to Him in whatever you choose. All right, quick recap. We have 3 main points and 3 questions that you can talk to the Lord about this week. So, ways to ditch the doubt and make confident decisions. Write these down, stick these on your forehead, your wall, your bathroom, your car, whatever it takes for you to just ditch this double-minded angstiness that we all suffer from. 1, lean into the curve. The path that He's leading you on is never going to be straight, so quit expecting it to be. 2, accept the fact that you can't see the whole roadmap. So you have to give up a little bit of control and just let Him lead you even when you can't see the whole picture. And number 3, walk in authority with the sound mind that He has given you. You want your 3 big questions to talk to God about this week? Now I got to find them. I lost them deep in the dredges of my journal. Oh, here they are. So number 1, in what areas of my life am I being double-minded? Notice I didn't ask him if I'm being double-minded, and I didn't ask him about one area, because I guarantee you're being double-minded too, and you got more than one area, because I did. Number 2, where have I been hesitating to go forward because the path doesn't make sense? And the last one, is there a choice that I've been worried about that I'm actually very free to make? And this one was really cool, actually. It gave me just a lot of like release from heavy pressure to know that he does trust me with the sound mind and judgment that he's put in me. And there are quite a few decisions that I've been wiffle waffling about that I'm okay to just move forward on without getting so hung up on them. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm going to do my very best to step out of this boat of double-mindedness and out of these nasty waves that are making me confused, angry, and seasick. And I'm going to try to walk forward in confidence with my decisions. I hope you do too. We'll talk soon. Bye.